This bike right here, guys, is the Armstrong XR-E. Maybe you've heard of Armstrong, maybe you haven't, but despite this bike being relatively new on the scene, the people behind the Armstrong brand are not new to the e-moto space. They've got quite a lot of experience, and this is the bike that they came up with. It's the XR-E. Yeah, it does look like a prototype because it's kind of in that stage right now, but Armstrong sent me the bike to give it a test ride, and I'm gonna run through the specs on it, talk about it because it's pretty impressive on paper, and then we'll take it out and go see how it rides.
The XR-E features a chromoly steel frame with an aluminum swing arm. For the powertrain, it's utilizing a BAC 8000 controller with a 15 kilowatt tune, which powers an air-cooled motor that is claimed to safely operate well above 15 kilowatts. The swappable battery is 2.6 kilowatt hours in capacity, and Armstrong claims a range of 56 miles and a top speed of 68 miles per hour. In the suspension department, the XR-E is sporting a Fastace fork and shock. A very unique feature of the XR-E is that it does not have a traditional mechanical rear brake. Rather, it uses a tunable regen setting that is initiated when you pull the rear brake lever. Customers can choose their own frame color and wheel options, and the price is currently coming in at 12,500 Canadian dollars, which is roughly 9,200 USD.
All right, so aside from those specs, some other things to check out here. You can see some foot peg positioning. You've got a bunch of different slots right there where you can slide foot pegs up and down into different positions. That's a pretty cool feature. Another thing you're gonna want, on our way back, look at the size of that sprocket. That thing is huge. All right, moving around back though, look at the size of that swing arm. That's kind of crazy. That is a wide swing arm. It's pretty absurd, actually. Another thing is this battery door here. So this is how you pop this thing off. Let's see if I can actually do that. Try and do this one-handed. Not working very well. There we go. Okay. So that's under the battery compartment right there. Zoom out a little bit so you can see that. There is no battery display on this bike. It's pretty basic in that sense, but fenders are definitely pretty interesting. I would say that those are function over style, both front and back. Looks like they'll do the trick, but probably not winning any style points with those fenders, but who cares about that stuff? If the bike rips, if it's got good suspension, if it's fun to ride, that's all that matters. So why don't we go ahead and try this thing out. All right, startup procedure on the Armstrong XR-E goes like this. You've got your compartment lid here for the battery. Open that up, and then on the battery itself, you've got that button. Press that button, slide this back on. Clips into place there, I think. There it is. Clip that into place, and then you've got your on and off switch right here. You just flick that on, and now the bike is live. Doesn't really make any noise. I'm gonna throw my gloves on, and we'll get out and ride this thing. Okay, we're barely riding, and this lid keeps popping off, so I'm going to try to give that one more opportunity to fit back on here. If it comes off again, I'm going to keep it off. Okay. Ask and you shall receive. Battery lid, you're gonna just wait here. Oh, that's cold water. I'm soaked every time. The first thing that's hard not to miss on the Armstrong XR-E is this rear brake lever. Great idea in theory, not working very well in use. It just immediately locks up the rear. There's no real ramp up for the rear brake, and it makes it really hard to modulate that. It makes it hard just to ride smoothly, to be honest. Little hill climb here. Whoa! Okay. I was warned about that. And I got a little off kilter here on this hill climb. I went to go grab the rear brake just to stop myself, but it's not a rear brake. It just keeps moving backwards until I grab the front brake. So that's one of two reasons why I am not liking this thing. Like I said, I think it's a great idea, but sometimes great ideas don't actually work the way that you want them to. Case in point right there. Yeah, enough ragging on it. Let's talk about some of the pros, which feel to be the power on this bike feels great. Like, it's not like crazy powerful, but it feels like the right amount of power. And the way it's delivered feels really good. You can tune a lot of this stuff in the app. One thing that I would want to change on this specifically is right off the crack of the throttle. I want a little bit more feedback personally, but aside from that, power output and how smooth it is really nice. It's a prototype feeling bike, that's for sure. I'm trying to pinpoint some of the feelings that I'm getting on this bike, especially in the front end. Like, man, that rear brake is really hard to ride smooth at all. Lost my train of thought there. Right, front end. Like, the fork feels decent, but the head tube angle is extremely slack on this bike. It looks kind of crazy. And at like higher speed, kind of straighter areas, feels good and stable, as you would expect from a slack head tube angle. But it's got an interesting characteristic when you're turning it. I'm not quite sure if that's head tube angle, front fork length, wheel, but it feels a little twitchy in the front. Like, it doesn't like to commit to its line. Kind of feels like it fights it, and it just feels a little squirrely up front. Oh my god, that rear brake. Like, it feels like it's like low in the front, but it's really slack also. It's kind of a weird feeling. Can't quite put my finger on it. Man, let's keep talking about the power on this thing. It's good. I hate to talk negatively about the bike. Power is so good. Just this chassis and rear brake are throwing me off quite a bit. First impression, you always get used to stuff the more you ride it, so I'm sure that would be the case on this bike. Just definitely feels a little unusual. Just don't quite feel comfortable going fast on this bike right now. Okay, first ride wrap up on the Armstrong XR-E. And let's start with the positives. It is an awesome power plant. Like, the power on this bike feels really good, really smooth, and really abundant. It feels like the right amount of power. It's the amount of power that I wish a lot of these lighter weight or mid-weight electric dirt bikes had. I would like to change a little bit of the power delivery, which I don't think would be a problem because you can tweak all that. I would just like the power to crack on a little sooner and be a little bit more responsive off the crack of the throttle. And then, you know, I mentioned it a lot, not to beat a dead horse, but this rear regen engine braking situation is not good for me. I don't like it. I won't beat around the bush and make it seem like it's something that it's not. I think it's a great idea. I know that you can tune it a bit, so maybe that would help some, but you need a rear brake on the bike. I think not having a rear brake is not a good idea. And I know that they can add one, so not a big deal. They probably will anyways, but the way that it sits right now, great concept, just doesn't execute the way that I would like it to. And then the front end is, it's interesting, you know, like putting it on tight single track, it doesn't perform great in the turning category. I feel like the front end pushes a lot and it feels like kind of squirrely and unpredictable. But when you get this bike out on like faster open road or like, you know, what I would call like desert type riding, it feels awesome. And that's not a surprise to me. When you look at how slack the head tube angle is on this bike, like that would be a characteristic of a desert bike. You would want that kind of feel, like it's going to track well at speed. You're not doing like tight turns, you're doing more kind of bike shifting to turn. The bike handles really well in that environment, so it's not surprising to me that it would work well there and it wouldn't work well on tight single track. That is the brief rundown on the bike. It's tough looking at these bikes really early on. I know I've done it before, and I have to be honest about it. Like, this bike feels like a prototype. It feels like it's got a little ways to go, and I think that they could get there. I think the platform itself has a lot of potential, but definitely some tweaks to be made yet. Still cool to check the bike out. I appreciate the opportunity. If you're interested in this bike, check out Armstrong. And yeah, that's about it. Thanks for watching, guys. See ya.